I am Kevin Levrone. Welcome to the second episode of Kevin Levrone's MD Muscle Report, along with my co-host, Ron Harris. Ron, we got a great show coming up, brother.
Oh, my goodness. You have gotten the GOAT for this one. The GOAT. You want to introduce him or should I?
You know what? I have to do this because this guy right here is certainly a brother. We've been on the road together and built our careers through the nationals all the way to the greatest moments. And he's definitely raised the bar in bodybuilding and took it to another whole new height. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce a really good, great friend of mine, someone who was admired and loved around the entire world of bodybuilding, 8-time Mr. Olympia, the greatest of all time, Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie, welcome to our show, brother.
Oh, man, thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
Yes. You know, Ronnie, when I was looking for guests to come on to the show, you're one of the first ones that ever came into my mind about this. And I ran it past Ron, and Ron was like, man, that would be a great start.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
Yeah, well, good to have you here, man. And got a lot of fans waiting for this. So, Ronnie, I want to start off with, I have some personal questions, because there's some things that when I saw you at the Nationals. We competed together there, and then I believe you went on and you went to do the Mr. Universe competition. But tell me a little bit about Ronnie Coleman. I mean, we know that you were a police officer and you went to college, but tell me what really inspired you as a teenager to get into the sport of bodybuilding.
No, I actually didn't start bodybuilding until I was about 25, somewhere in there. I was 2 years out of college, I know, so I was 20. I was at least 24, maybe 25. And I've been working out since I was 12. And I only started because, I'm from a small town. We didn't have anything to do. I was always pretty muscular, and people always asked me about it. So I just wondered what I'd look like if I started working out. So I just started lifting weights in my backyard and kind of fell in love with it. We didn't have anything at, like at school until I got to high school. We had a powerlifting team. I joined that, and I did okay. I wasn't that good at it, I didn't get a lot of first place, a lot of second place, didn't get a lot of third place. So I got a lot of fourth, fifth, sixth like that, But I had a lot of fun, Like I said, I was pretty much in love with it from just starting it in my backyard when I was, like 12 years old. I started the powerlifting team when I was 14, somewhere in there. And I've been hooked pretty much since I started.
Ronnie, I never asked you, did you know about bodybuilding? Did you ever see magazines or anything before you became a bodybuilder?
No, not really. Where I'm from, we didn't have bodybuilding in our hometown. Nobody did that. We were all playing basketball, football, track, baseball, stuff like that. Nobody did bodybuilding in high school or college.
Wow. Ronnie, tell me a little bit about your stature back then. You're about 14, 15, 16 years old, but I mean, how much did you weigh?
See, I can't remember until I got to college. Not college, I mean high school. I was only 181. I was in the 181 weight class. So I was about 175, somewhere in there.
So at 175 pounds, tell our listeners a little bit about were you a heavy bench presser? Were you squatting a lot? Were you doing full body workouts? What was your workouts like then, being as in your early 20s?
No. I didn't do any full body workouts. I mostly did like squat, bench, deadlift, powerlifting movements. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a lot of machines and stuff in my high school. We didn't have a lot of machines and stuff in my college. So I didn't really do a lot of like major lifting in those days. I would always do bench press. I would always do squat. I would deadlift every now and then, not too often, but every now and then. We'd have maybe We didn't have a lot of machines at all. Come to think of it.
So we fast forward. You graduate from college, and you decided to go into the police force. When did it actually hit you that you might have a serious career in this industry? Was it at the Nationals or?
No, not really. Probably when I won my first Olympia, it kind of hit me.
Hold up, Ronnie. So you win the Olympia, then all of a sudden it hits you. Wow, I might be great. You had no idea how great you was prior to that?
No, because I was working full-time police department, and I wasn't doing all that good, as you remember.
Yeah, I remember. I remember you coming on the tours, and now going. Okay, so you end up turning pro. You won the universe to turn pro, correct?
Yeah.
Now, the big question that I've always wanted to know, and has this been thrown around? Were you natural when you won the universe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Now, when you were competing, so you turned pro naturally, okay?
Yeah.
Now, when you were competing in your first Mr. Olympia, were you natural?
Yep.
Wow.
Wow. That is unheard of. Unbelievable. And I was like, man, something must have just happened to just take you to the next level. Was it when you so we're gonna fast forward here. What was your first pro show, Ronnie? Tell us about your first pro show that you won.
Oh, the first pro show. I entered the first one I won.
Well, your first pro show was '92, but you didn't win your first till '95, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I have to go back just a second, Ronnie. Everyone around you was using steroids at the Nationals, at your first pro show, the Olympia. You knew that steroids were being used. Why weren't you using them? Were you afraid? Was it a moral thing, a health thing?
I didn't know anything about that kind of stuff. I was new to the sport. I didn't know what guys were doing, what they were taking there as far as, types of steroids or nothing. I wasn't educated in no kind of way, none whatsoever. I just got into the sport because the guy told me to give me a free membership to the gym, and that's all I was paying out to be.
Wow.
Ronnie. So the first pro show you won was the one in was the one in Russia, was it?
No, the first one I won was in Canada at the Montreal.
Yeah. Canada Pro Cup.
And what year was that, Ronnie?
95.
And that was the same year that you ended up going on the tour, and you beat me in Russia, correct?
No, that was 97.
That was. You sure it was that long? 97?
Yeah, I'm positive.
And you came home. I remember we came home after that. But listen, before that, I got a knock on the door, Ron. So here I am. Ronnie and I, we competed. I must have did like 6 shows or 5 shows. So we end up in Russia. I think where we were, St. Petersburg. What city was that, Ron?
Yeah, you probably St. Petersburg.
It was St. Petersburg. And I think I had won 5 shows. And I think...
No, you have won 6. I remember all this like it was yesterday.
Wow. This is awesome.
So go ahead, Ronnie.
If you won that 7th show, you'd have set a record for the most win on any tour.
So I'm winning these shows, and what was going through your mind as I'm winning these shows? What made you knock on my door that night?
So you was winning all those shows. And I was getting like 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever. And I'm like, man, how come I can't do no better than what I'm doing? Everything I'm doing, trying to do ain't working. I can't get the water to come off me or nothing.
Yeah, and no coach.
Kevin got the formula over there. So let me knock on this door and ask him what he's doing. Kind of like the same formula I took in college. If I wasn't the smartest kid in the class, I always studied with the smartest kid in the class, so I can learn from him.
So Ronnie, you knock on my door that night. I think it's almost 12 o'clock midnight. We just got finished competing, and we flew to Russia. Next thing you know, I get a knock on my. I look through the peephole like this, and I see Ronnie. I'm like, what in the world? And I let him in. So, Ronnie, you tell the story after that, because I said this a lot. What happened when I let you in there? Like, do you remember our conversation?
I don't remember word for word, but I remember why I came to your room, though, and I remember asking you what you was doing to win all these shows, because, you know, I've tried everything. Nothing I'm doing is working. So I remember you going over to the coffee maker, had your coffee in there, and you had a cup there, you poured some coffee in there. And then I'm like, coffee? I'm like, okay, I don't like coffee, but I'll try. Then you reach in the refrigerator and put some vodka in there. I'm like, oh, man, no, I know I can't drink no vodka. I ain't never had nothing like that before. But you like, no, man, this is what I'm doing. You try it. This will work for you. I'm like, well, if you're doing it and it worked for you, I'll try it. Because about right now, you know, I'll try just about anything, because everything I've tried ain't nothing working. Nothing.
You know, Ron, we, you know, Ronnie didn't drink at all.
I know.
And I remember having that conversation with you, Ronnie. I was like, you just have to relax. Just relax. You just got to relax a little bit, because I saw you on the tours and I would just see how you were so strict. You know, you were always eating. You were always doing everything perfectly. So the only thing that I could think of is, you know, you're in your head with everything, you know? Being too hard on yourself sometimes. So what happened, Ron, was that alcohol in the mixture of the coffee speed up his metabolism, but the alcohol was a vasodilator, and it got him able to relax and to just rest himself and to go into a mind state of relaxation and get out of his head mentally. And he was able to do that. And I think, Ron, we probably sat there and talked for about like how long were you in my room? Just a few hours, maybe?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, I think for some reason we ended up until like 3 o'clock in the morning. But the next morning we had to go and compete. I think we had to be on stage by 1 o'clock, I believe. And do you remember waking up and looking at yourself and seeing something different?
I never, you know what, to be honest with you, I couldn't sleep.
You're drinking coffee.
3 days, I couldn't sleep on that tour for some reason or another. So, you know, I never went to sleep. So for the most part, I never laid down and got up. You know, I pretty much just stayed awake all night. I did try to sleep, though. I did try, but I couldn't. So I kind of pretty much gave up on it.
Now, were you going to the bathroom or something? Something must have had to happen for you to relax.
I think I did go to the bathroom a few times. Yeah, I do remember. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Kevin, let me ask you, Kevin, because I always assumed that the mixture of coffee and vodka was to dry him out, like a natural diuretic. Was that not the plan? You actually just use it.
Yeah. It's also a natural diuretic, of course. Yes, it dehydrates you. Yeah. Whatever happened, I saw him the next day on that stage, and I just couldn't believe it. And it was just a total different physique, total different human being. Ronnie, I think you were very, very shocked that you actually won the show.
Yeah. I was, because I remember I told you I didn't really see myself before I went over. I didn't really look in the mirror or nothing. No, I was still thinking, you know, I'm gonna get, you know, placed here again, you know, bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
So when I actually won, I was.
You actually won that show, carried that heavy trophy home. Yeah, I know that thing was heavy. And then I think you got the call, or the word got to the Weeder office that you had beat me on the tour. And it was lights out. And we went on again. And you certified that win in Russia was not a mistake, or it wasn't just a hoax. You actually beat me again in New York City on the Night of Champions, to like seal of approval that you have definitely arrived. How did that feel like, coming back to America and winning the Night of Champions and putting that seal of approval on your career, Ronnie?
Yeah, I think the Night of Champions was probably one of the biggest wins of my career at that time. And, you know, I had competed in that show just about every year since 1992. So, you know, that was a show that you always get an invite to regardless, and they always help you with your flight and everything. And, you know, because Wayne ran that show, and he was always, you know, pro bodybuilder. He was always trying to do it as much as he can for all the guys. So I competed in that show just about every year leading up to what I wanted, and I always wanted to win because, you know, it was one of the biggest shows, and they gave away this big ring, and the prize money was always better than, you know, all the other shows too. Mm-hmm. So when I won that show, you know, that's when I knew, you know, I was a little bit on to something.
Well, you know, that set you up coming up to the Mr. Olympia, and the Mr. Olympia that year was wide open.
Yeah.
So you go home, you have 2 pro wins, 3 pro wins, major one is the Night of Champions. So you go home and you have, what do we got right there? The Night of Champions was in, what month was that? May?
May.
It was in May. So Olympia's coming up. What's going through your mind at Mr. Olympia? It's wide open. Did you actually think that you could win the Mr. Olympia when you went into the show, Ronnie?
No. Remember, I had got 9th the year before, so anything better than 9th would have been good for me. So I was just thinking, you know, I don't want the Night of Champions now, so, you know, that's good. So if I can just do better than what I did last year, even top 5, you know, that would be that's what I had my mindset on right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you something, Ronnie, because that was the first year you worked with Chad Nichols, 98, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you? I mean, I've seen the progress pictures. Chad actually, I think he posted them up on Facebook about 6 months ago. And could you see yourself right before? What was your first show with Chad? Was it Night of Champions in 98?
Well, actually, it was Canada. Right before the Night of Champions, I was working with Chad at that show. But he wasn't able to come down. But he did make it down to the Night of Champions.
Yeah, so my question is, could you see that you were looking so much different, so much better than you ever had? Because 98, dude, God, that was such a great look for you. And it was so much improved over even 97, 96. It was like another leap forward in your development, in your conditioning.
Well, I didn't really see anything different, you know. I was just trying to, you know, get better and be better. That's why I hooked up with Chad, because, you know, guys I worked with before, you know, I didn't get any good service out of him. So to me, I was just better than I had been, you know, like the year prior. But I didn't know anything. I didn't notice anything as far as size, anything like that goes. I didn't notice anything different as far as that goes, though. Okay. I didn't notice anything major, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So, Ronnie, you win your first Mr. Olympia. Your mom was there. Family member was there. I remember that night. What was going through your mind? When did it actually sink in that you were Mr. Olympia?
Probably a couple weeks later. Maybe a couple months later. Mm-hmm. You know, I was going there trying to just, you know, make the top 6 at least somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. If I could have made, like, you know, 4th or 5th, I'd have been, you know, the happiest guy in the world. I mean, I've been overjoyed. Mm-hmm. The year before I got 9th, you know, and I never thought too much about bodybuilding and being, you know, top guy and nothing like that. Mm-hmm. Like when I got into it, I just got into it because the guy told me to give me a free membership to the gym. And, you know, I was working full time for the police department. I had a job, making good money, had good benefits and everything. Mm-hmm. It never occurred to me that, you know, I was going to win the Olympia or nothing like that.
Kevin, did you know? Kevin, you were a favorite for that show. Sean Ray, Flex Wheeler was a heavy favorite. You must have been pretty shocked when Ronnie won.
Well, going into the show, that show was wide open, and I was so used to winning every show. And I mean, I was so used to beating Ronnie. Like, mentally, you think, wow, you think maybe I can take him here, you know, at the Mr. Olympia. Mm-hmm. We all were shocked. But it happened, and then all of a sudden, I think it really sunk in when we just took a deep breath and we started to observe and look at him. Then we realized the ground that he had covered was this so much muscle development over a short period of time. He just wasn't the same Ronnie Coleman that we were placing ahead of. And something had happened. We didn't know what it was. We just knew that something phenomenal had happened, and we were there witnessing it. And when he had won, you know, it was like, man, it wasn't a bitter moment, you know, for me at all. I was like, wow, you could kind of like see, you know what, he deserved it. And
yeah, I don't think nobody was as shocked as I was, though, Kevin.
Ronnie, you told me, Ronnie, you weren't in the first call out in the judging at that Olympia. Is that right?
I wasn't the second call out either.
What?
I didn't get called out to like the third call out.
Wow, Kevin, do you remember that?
Yes, and he just came as the show went on. Ronnie came on, and we came back to the night show, and we just heard the talk. I was like, wow. Huh. And it was between him and Flex, first and second. And Ronnie Ronnie had the mask and everything, and it was just you could just tell that something huge was happening, and we were just sitting back in the shadows at that point. And when he was announced Mr. Olympia, it was a phenomenal moment, man. It was a changing of the sport of bodybuilding, and you could actually see as he developed into Mr. Olympia how he paralleled our sport bodybuilding to another whole universe and took it to another level where no Mr. Olympia had ever accomplished the size, the shape, and just the muscle development that Ronnie Coleman did. Ronnie, you known to a lot of us around the world as one of the greatest, you know, of all time bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia that ever lived. And I just want to tell you, man, it's an honor for me to just live through this moment, to be able to compete, to have been able to compete against you, to call you friend and just witness and see the growth that you've accomplished through this sport. As a humbled human being, I would watch you, you know, on the bus and on the tours and catch trains from city to city and shows to shows, and how you've grown. You just stay so humble. And I said, Ronnie, why would you do it? Because you're just coming in dead last. She said, Kevin, because I love the sport. And it's a God honest truth, man. Not only do you love the sport, you live for this sport. And you're just such a humble, great champion, man. I want to say it's an honor, man. And I love you, brother. You're like the Michael Jordan of basketball. You're you know, the Tiger Woods. But, you know, we have our Ronnie Coleman. And I live through those moments. And I want to say, man, I love you. Peace, man. You've touched many, many, many millions of bodybuilding fans around the world. So I want to thank you for that personally.
Oh, man, no problem. You know, the reason why I maybe stay so humble because, you know, me, people don't really understand it. You know, I never thought that in a million years I'd win the Olympia, not long less 8 of them. And to me, it wasn't going to happen because that's really not the reason why I got into the sport. I got into the sport because it was something that I loved to do and enjoyed doing. And it was pretty much more of a hobby than anything to me that pretty much turned into a job after a while because I still worked full-time police department. Like the first 3 Olympias that I won, I don't think I was able to quit until like the 4th one, you know, somewhere in there. So to me, I was going to go on and just work the police department and just work my way up through the ranks there. Mm-hmm. But, you know, God had plans.
Yes, he did.
And I answered the calling. And, you know, it took it to another level and took it to a different direction. And, you know, I never thought something like that would happen. So I was never able to even just, you know, dream it. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was just, I was just this guy who just happened to win the Olympia.
Ronnie, there's some kids out there right now. There's some bodybuilders who coming through the ranks. They're listening to you, and they're losing hope. They've lost hope, and they really don't have belief in themselves, and they're just going through the motions, you know, and they really don't know what's going to happen, but they're laying it all out, and they're giving it everything. You were once that person. What's the advice that you can give to the inspiring bodybuilders out there who have a dream and got into it like you did? what can they expect? What kind of words of encouragement do you have for those guys?
You know what? I don't know if I was actually one of those guys because I had a career in the police department, and that was another job that I look forward to going to each and every day. I loved, with all my heart, So I was doing almost two things that I loved doing: being a bodybuilder and working full time for the police department. So even though I was doing those two things, it was like I was like going through life, having fun, enjoying myself. I was never really working doing those, even though I worked real hard at both of them. I was doing it because I was having so much fun with it. But I would try to tell people, you know what? God had purpose for each and every one of us. Ain't nobody here just to be here. We all have a career, and we all have a calling. And it's up to you to figure out which one of those you are going to be, Me, I accepted my calling kind of late in life, but I accepted it. But my career was going to be in the police department. I accepted that real early on. Because I didn't know what my calling was going to be until, later in life. I didn't win my first Olympics until I was 34. So, people, they know what they're going to be when they in first, second grade. They can tell you, that won't be a professional baseball player one day. I'm going to be a professional football player one day. And a lot of people go on and do that. But me, I didn't have anything like that. I did as I got older. I started playing football, and I think, you know what? I'm gonna be a professional football player one day. Well, that calling didn't pan out. So I always tell people, just hang on, have faith, because you're gonna figure it out. It's just gonna take some time.
Yeah, right. Ronnie, I just want to interject because Ronnie, if you had never walked into Metroflex Gym that day, and I think it was 1989, if you had never met Brian Dobson and he had never offered you a free membership if you agreed to compete, is it likely you never ever would have gone into bodybuilding, competed ever?
Yeah, that's a possibility because I was working out at the station at the time. They had a little lightweight gym there. It wasn't much, but I hadn't planned on joining no gym or nothing. I was just gonna work out there where it was free. And, so had I not, walked into Metroflex, probably wouldn't have never made it to the Olympic stage. To the bodybuilding stage. Because Brian, he begged me about 3 or 4 days straight to do it. In the first 3 or 4 days, he was just saying, he kept saying, you can be a great bodybuilder, you can be Mr. Olympia. I didn't know what all that stuff meant back in them days because I didn't know too much about the sport. So I didn't really pay him no attention, and I didn't want to do no bodybuilding because I heard some bad things about those guys. I was real happy being on the police department. One thing that changed my mind is when he told me he'd give me a free membership to the gym.
That's awesome.
I even offered that, I still wouldn't have got into bodybuilding. I just worked out at the gym just to have fun, because that's what I always did, I always worked out for fun.
Well, Ronnie, not only did you have fun, we had fun watching you. I just want to thank you, man, for coming on to my second show here with my host, Ron Harris. And it's not enough time this time because we're coming to a close, but we certainly want to have you back. And when you come back, Ronnie, I want to talk about the life of Ronnie Coleman today and so on and forth like that, because I could sit here and we could go for hours, because it's so much history with you and everything runs so deep. But I want to thank you for coming on to the show, Ronnie.
Thank you, Ronnie. Yeah. And Kevin, Ronnie, in both of your honors, going to do a shot of vodka right now, okay? Yeah, true story.
All right, guys, this is Kevin Levrone ending episode number 2 with the greatest of all time, 8-time Mr. Olympia, Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie, thank you for being here at the Kevin Levrone MD Report. And Ron Harris, I'll see you in the next show, brother. Peace and one love, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, bro. Have a good one.